Nigerian police parades 55 suspected criminals terrorizing Zamfara, Kaduna and Abuja highways.
Federal government assures Nigerians of proactive measures to manage risk of Ebola importation into the country.
World Bank commends Nigeria's intervention projects for socio-economic development.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on infertility, causes, effects, and solutions.
A home filled with children is the delight of most people, particularly married couples. In the African context and many cultures in Nigeria, having children is at the center of every marriage relationship for many reasons. Children are seen as precious jewels and expressly referred to as bundle of joy. So, what happens when a union is experiencing delay in producing children or cannot produce children at all? The consequences are better imagined. Now, the social, cultural, and religious sentiments of having children in Nigeria is one that pressures most couples to want to start having children almost immediately after exchanging their vows. And perhaps, Kinsley, this explains why when the babies don't come as soon as anticipated, labels begin to fly up and down with words like barren, impotent, and the likes thrown at couples, most times creating physical, emotional, and psychological stress for the partners. You're quite right, Kirian. Now, infertility in some marriages often would lead to separation or depression for some of them. Now, there is also tension, anxiety, and desperation as usually the reactions of the couples. Now, according to available statistics, infertility is the reason why some 20 to 25% of married couples in Nigeria are without children. And it is explained as the inability of a couple to conceive after having unprotected sex for about 12 months or a year, depending on how you may want to put it. Now, unfortunately, traditions and cultures on this side of the world most often blame the woman for being unable to conceive. Now, such unfair judgments and conclusions have no scientific basis at all. And now, thanks to medical literacy, it is obvious that the challenge can be both from the man and the woman, and that indeed male infertility accounts for up to 50% of all such cases. Certainly, Kinsley. Now, while some are permanent infertility, others are temporary, caused by factors like lifestyle. It's also important to note that there have been medical breakthroughs that provide reproductive options for couples desiring children. So this morning, we shall again raise several questions for our experts to explain with regard to infertility. In particular, what is the level of infertility in Nigeria? And what are the options for couples desirous of having children? And to what extent is assisted conception a solution to infertility? Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. My name is Kingsley Osadola, and of course, this is the last edition of the program for the week. And I am Kirian Umayo. It is the last edition, as Kinsley said, and we are reaching you live from the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's largest TV network. And as usual, we shall present other segments of the program, which include newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and entertainment news. For now, let's take the news highlights with Rhoda and Nonam. Good morning, Rhoda.
Good morning, Kirian, and good morning, Nigeria. 56 suspected armed robbers, kidnappers and cattle rustlers have been terrorizing Zamfara State, Beningwari in Kaduna State, and travelers along Kaduna-Abuja Highway, amongst others, have been apprehended by the Nigerian police. 10 of the suspects were allegedly involved in the recent attack on Gwaska village near Beningwari and the burial ground attack in Zamfara State.
Musa Sage is a very notorious and vicious leader of a kidnap for ransom gang. He has kidnapped in Zamfara some parts of other Niger, and equally in Kogi State. He's the one that collected ransom of 17 million. When the police were on his trail with his gang member, we engaged them in a shootout, and successfully we were able to eliminate 4 of the gang members.
Now, the Kogi State High Court has adjourned sitting on the case of Dino Melaye to Wednesday next week. At the next adjourned date, the court will deliver a ruling on the bail application of the defendant, Dino Melaye. Now, during Thursday's hearing presided over by the Chief Judge of Kogi State, Justice Nasiru Ajana, the prosecutor and defense counsel argued for and against the bail.
They have not brought any contrary evidence from any medical hospital, from the prison that they want him to be sent to, that they have the required facilities to treat this man.
We have given our reasons following the antecedents that has been happening why he should not be granted bail.
And to whom much is giving, much is expected. Therefore, with a new 20 billion naira head office complex, it is not unexpected that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is committing to new strategies that will rid the country of corruption.
The President here is to say that whatever we do in our job, the most important thing is that we all represent the institutions, and we must work and see that that is in the interest of the country.
So you can see you are better equipped than the National Assembly. So the challenge, therefore, is that you should succeed more in implementing the laws that we pass.
And it's a good idea if we can have a separate court that will face the corruption cases.
The World Bank says it is pleased to see that its intervention projects in Nigeria are yielding results. The Executive Director, spokesperson for the 10-man delegation from the World Bank, Dr. Patrizio Pagano, at a meeting with the Minister of Finance in Abuja, promised better cooperation with the federal government for socio-economic development of the country.
The World Bank works to eradicate poverty and to make growth as inclusive as possible by boosting the income of the bottom 40%.
Now we're back to growth. It's 2 things. It's 1 is to accelerate that growth, and then 2 is to make that growth count and make people feel it. And that's where the sort of lifting people out of poverty, employment generation.
The federal government says there are mechanisms in place to manage the risk of Ebola importation into the country. Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewale, at a news briefing in Abuja, assures Nigerians that there is nothing to worry about.
What we'll do is to set up an emergency operations center, which will be chaired by Dr. Babasanya, who actually led our effort in Liberia and Sierra Leone and Guinea during the outbreak in 2014. Not only that, we'll be screening incoming passengers, particularly passengers from DRC and neighboring countries.
And still talking health, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency wants the Senate to engage the Ministry of Finance to provide funds for the construction and equipping of primary health facilities to prevent funds mop-up at the end of the fiscal year. This is when the team from the agency visited the President of the Senate.
What you have presented to us today, I promise you, cannot get us there. When we made the Health Act in 2014, and that is what is driving us now. The National Assembly would deliver on this 1% of CRF for primary health care.
Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed has expressed satisfaction with the pace of work on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. The minister stated this during the second leg inspection tour of the federal government's projects in Lagos State. And that's it on the news beat this morning. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll be back with Kingsley and Kieran. Stay with us.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem frontally through revival of agriculture.
30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime, we bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Dettol team is visiting schools to teach children how to protect themselves from diseases. Do you know how we get illnesses like diarrhea, cough, and cold? No! They are spread through germs which are everywhere. You collect germs that cause diseases. You pick up germs from any surface, like when you don't wash your hands after going to the toilet, while playing. And then you can get sick because of germs. That's why you need to fight germs to stay healthy by washing your hands and taking your bath with Dettol soap to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Wash, wash, wash your hands. What you have to do is bath yourself. Dettol soap every day. Wash, wash, wash your hands.
There are many ways to get rich, but is whistleblowing one of them?
Flash boy must hear this.
Is the whistleblower blowing to make our country a better place? Is he blowing to take authorities on a wild goose chase?
As I'm living here now, going to comb everywhere.
Is he blowing to take a chance on wealth?
We need to move fast before those bags are moved out of the house.
And perchance strike gold.
Is it only politicians? What of armed robbers and kidnappers?
They talk about bushmeat, you talk about lizard.
Join your lovely cast of your rib-cracking comedy, Professor Jambul, in this episode titled Trumpet Blowers. Find out why the whistle blows and laugh like never before.
Not to say I don't really see any politician go receive that kind of money. I just make a call you in advance.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
The largest data network, Glow Unlimited.
NTA Television College, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, has over the years maintained her reputation of putting together courses that are highly relevant to manpower needs of the broadcast industry. The college is again organizing a 4-week course on English grammar and pronunciation for broadcasters, slated for 21st May to 15th June 2018. Come and take advantage of our top-notch and intensive course designed to grow the skills of television presenters, script writers, news editors, journalists, hosts of live events in just 4 weeks. Venue, multipurpose complex, NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos. Fee is 100,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. Be there. NTA Television College, Jos, training you to be the best you can be.
To the outer framers, the hat tippers, the fringe goers, you don't need to hide anymore. Try Dettol Even Tone. It cleans and helps to reduce the appearance of blemishes caused by oil, dirt, and germs, giving your skin a healthy feel for an even better you. Dettol, be 100% sure.
Dettol soap is now also available for 100 naira only.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Now, let's turn to business. Banks' credit to the private sector falls in first quarter of 2018 as economic analysts appeal for speedy passage of this year's budget to sustain gains recorded on the economy. Details on business news with Joy Uzo.
Hello and a warm welcome to Business News. Banks' credit to the private sector fell quarter on quarter by 140 billion naira to 15.6 trillion naira in the first quarter of 2018. National Bureau of Statistics disclosed this in its latest banking sector report titled Sectorial Breakdown of Credit, E-Payment Channels and Staff Strength, Q1 2018 report. According to the report, banks lent 15.6 trillion naira to the private sector in the first quarter of 2018, down from 15.74 trillion naira in the fourth quarter of 2017. The report showed that the oil and gas and manufacturing sectors received the highest credit during the quarter. While the oil and gas industry got 3.42 trillion naira, the manufacturing sector received 2.07 trillion naira. Moving on now, the delay in the passage of the 2018 appropriation bill before the National Assembly has continued to generate interest from the public, some of whom feel the prolonged non-passage of the bill could have negative impact on the gains made on the economy so far. Some experts who spoke to NTA Business News called on the National Assembly to also take into consideration the national interest in the course of their legislative and political assignments.
And if our politics is right, our economy will always be good. Bad politics breeds bad economy. Good politics produces good economy.
It's extremely high expectation on the part of the Nigerian populace for them to have a much better transformative life, that everyone can see that this governmental spending is touching life of people positively in terms of positive outcomes, which I believe if diligently the budget is passed in good time and implemented according to the provisions, perhaps we can see much in terms of transformation.
Now the Nigerian stock market records further loss to extend 3-day negative stance, depreciating by 0.40% to close at 40,915.17 basis points. Next is a graphic representation of the closing figures. Finally, Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of England has announced that its monetary policy will meet the 2% inflation target in a way that will sustain growth and employment. At the end of the meeting, the bank maintained its rate at 0.5%. The committee also unanimously voted to maintain the stock of UK government bond purchases financed by the issuance of central bank reserves at £435 billion. That does it on Business News. Many thanks for watching. I am Joy Uzo.
Thank you, Joy. A newspaper review is next on the program.
Baya Toby, our newspaper reviewer, is with us on the studios for today's review session. Baya, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning.
Yeah,
good morning,
welcome.
Kenya. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, let's take a look. We have a lot of politics stories dominating the front pages today. There are also stories from the courts, but some of them, of course, are linked to politics. Let's take a look at the very busy front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune, we'll just go from immediately below the name flag to the foot of the front page, above the strip advert you have there. Court nullifies Omo Agege's suspension. That story is on page 36. Court nullifies, if you can see that on the screen right away, that's Nigerian Tribune. If it's right there, yeah, you can see that. That's, no, wait, it's below the nameplate of the paper. You'll see that again. It says court nullifies Omo Agege's suspension. And NJC, that's National Judicial Council, recommends judge for sack, probes 7, appoints 21, and petitioners withdraw allegation against Supreme Court Justice and CJ. I didn't advocate special courts. That's according to the CJM. APC needs fresh ideas. That's according to Shomole, declares for national chairmanship. It's our project. That's according to Korocha, details on page 3. But the lead story, again, is on politics as well. It says Obasanjo's coalition dissolves into ADC. And with a rider, more decisive political actions across platforms coming in days. That's according to Ilola, who has also resigned as chairman of the National Identity Management Commission. Now, you can look at the sidebar that is over there, the sidebar that is to the right-hand column of the Nigerian Tribune. It's what Obasanjo said. Of course, you have a number of bullet points there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet points. You can take a look at that with regard to the issues that the former President Obasanjo, whose coalition is now dissolved into the AC, is talking about. Now, right at the foot of the front page also, you have a window of 3 headlines. 2 men arrested with 600 bottles of codeine-containing syrups in Kwara. Ekiti governorship. Adeyeye dumps PDP. Ojudu withdraws from APC primaries. APC holds rescheduled primaries tomorrow. And Oyo local government polls hold tomorrow as court dismisses suit and government restricts vehicular movement. Kirian.
All right. From the blueprint, we have the same story you read on Tribune. Twist as court nullifies Omo Agege's suspension. That's below the nameplate of blueprint. And the writer says Senate can't suspend member for 90 days. What's the Senate to decide on ruling? The full text of that story is on page 6 of blueprint. Now, the major headline here, APC chairmanship tussle. Nobody can use me, Oshomole roars. The writer, Buhari needs no campaign in the north, says Rochas Okorocha, the governor of Imo State. The story is also on page 6. Now, below the photograph there, we have a codeine ban. NDLEA arrests 17 in Kwara, page 15. That also featured on the Tribune that Kinsley just read. And our following the story is NUC recommends sack of Adamawa George, investigates 25 others. Page 6 has that story as well. And then federal government now worry over unskilled Nigerian graduates. That's now is a National Open University. All right, now I can't wait for nation's worst Senate to go, says Sage. And with the writer, lawmakers' declaration on IGP laughable, says the police. The story is also on page 6. Now, herders, farmers strike peace deal in Enugu. That's a good one. It's on page 32 of a blueprint. And a striking one there at the bottom of blueprint. Nigerian diplomat assassinated in Sudan. That's on page 9. All right,
yes, the unfortunate incident of Nigerian diplomat assassinated in Khartoum occurred about 2 days ago, and the authorities in Sudan are suspicious of that it was a murder case, but they are still inquiring into it. Meanwhile, let's start with the issues from the courts. And Abuja High Court has ruled that it has pronounced as a nullity the 90-day suspension the Senate imposed on one of its own, Senator Omo Agege. Justice Nnamdi Iwa held that the legislature has the power to deal with any members, but did not follow due process. Furthermore, the reason given by the Ethics and Privileges Committee for which he was suspended was a breach of the Constitution, and therefore the basis for the nullity. Meanwhile, early reports this morning indicate that the Senate has already appealed that ruling. You recall that Senator Ali Ndume, the erstwhile Senate leader, was also suspended. He took the case to court. The court ruled that the suspension was also a nullity, and that case is also pending in the court. Meanwhile, the National Judicial Council held its 86th meeting and take far-reaching decisions. In the bid to wage war against alleged corruption, the NJC has set up 7 investigative panels. They are to inquire into allegations by the Economic and Financial Crime Commission against 25 judges and others, and they are to be investigated for alleged misconduct. Meanwhile, the NJC also recommended the retirement of Justice Michael Goji to the Adamawa State Governor. The judge was said to have been transferred, but he refused to move on. Meanwhile, The spokesperson for the National Judicial Council, Mr. Oye, also says that the NJC cleared a Supreme Court judge, chief judges of 3 states, and 7 others of alleged misconduct. On the political scene, the APC gubernatorial primaries is now scheduled for Ado-Ekiti on Sunday. Meanwhile, presidential advisor on political matters, Babafemi Ojudu, has withdrawn his contest. That leaves 33 contestants to start from the starting blocks.
It's under the APC.
Under the APC.
Primaries.
Yes, under the APC. And the fallout for the PDP primaries that was held on Tuesday, former Minister of State and former caretaker publicity secretary, Prince Adedayo Adeye, has resigned from the People's Democratic Party. He was wooed and promised the position of deputy governor and or in the alternative, the seat for the Ekiti South. He said his contention is not a personal ambition, but a determination to fight the succession plan currently going on in the state. Right. Meanwhile, the Coalition for Nigeria movement has now pitched its camp with African Democratic Congress. Prince Olagunsoye Oyinlola, who was one of those proposing that, has now resigned his chairmanship of Nigeria Identity Management Council. Commission.
All right, Bayo, thanks a lot. You've already touched on a number of issues, but back to Senator Omar Agege and the decision by the Abuja Division of the Federal High Court. I hope it is clear that the ruling of the decision of the court was to the effect that the Senate, or indeed the National Assembly or a legislature, has the powers to sanction its members.
Yes, that was clear.
Yes, it's very clear. So that because there have been some interpretations that no, you cannot suspend your members there. But the issue is the duration of the suspension or of the sanction or the kind of sanction, and more importantly, the reason for the sanction. In other words, what kind of infraction would warrant a sanction? And this is very crucial because in the past it was said that, oh, okay, lawmakers couldn't take the legislature, to court. That would be almost equivalent to the ouster clauses that we used to find in pieces of legislation during the military. Yes. And it says, look, this, of course, is a compromise of the constitutional right of any person, of access to court. Yes. I think that these are very crucial issues. And as you also indicate,
even in the case of
from what you read, sorry,
yes.
from what you read out now, the judgment also points to the fact that the due process was not duly followed. Even as part of the reason for the judgment.
Yes, the judge stressed that they have a right to discipline erring members,
that's
but
right.
They had overreached themselves.
That's right.
That's
otherwise, just to give a ridiculous example, I don't think that there's any chamber in the country today where lawmakers are allowed to smoke. I mean, if a lawmaker were to come into the chamber smoking, what would you do? Or a lawmaker were to relieve himself right in the chamber, and he does that repeatedly. I mean, he's not suffering from any continence. It has to be disciplined. All right.
All right, we have the pilot, Nigerian pilot here now. Now, below the nameplate, EFCC docks ex-IGP Hindero. That's on page 5. The consent to Johesu's demand, face strike, NMA wants federal government. Details of that report is also on page 5. Now, the main headline of the Nigerian pilot, face off as Senate police altercation continues. That's the rider there. You could see the Senate president there, of course, with the IGP in that photograph. Now, Oshomole declares, that's below the photograph now, Oshomole declares for APC chair, says, I can't be used. And there are other striking headlines here. Senators Right Buhari accuse El Rufai of hate speech. El Rufai, the governor of Kaduna State. Now is on page 5 for details. Now, Nigerian diplomat found dead at home in Sudan on page 4 of the Nigerian pilot. And NUC sacks judge, appoints 21, probe 7. We had that in other newspapers. Group bemoans political apathy in the southeast. And of course, we have a Kota Jones, ex-governor Suswam's case to May 22nd.
All right, let's take a look. The front page of this day, the stories that we have also touched on them. We have stories on politics and politics on Oshomole declaring for the APC chairmanship and CNM fusing into ADC, as well as the Omar Agege suspension decision. Now, about the nameplate, there's this story, but we haven't discussed it very quickly. It says Senate Inspector General's claim for shunning someone's diversionary. Details of that story can be found on page 10. And then, lastly, before we take the editorial, there's a story we don't have on the front pages here. We didn't discuss it yesterday. A story out of Malaysia. It's former Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, who had ruled Malaysia for 22 years. 92 years old he is now. He stood for re-election out of retirement, and he's won. If you recall, when he first indicated that he was going to run, we said that was, of course, going to send former President Robert Mugabe, you know,
break his record.
Pretty angry in Zimbabwe, because Mugabe was also angling to return as president. But of course, Mugabe had been on for almost 38 years before he was ousted.
Well, it's different rules for different folks. Here in Nigeria, we are angling that people are not too young to rule, and in Malaysia, they are saying the president they elected is not too old to rule. But meanwhile, in our own Nigerian climb here, former Governor Adams Oshiomhole says he wants to be of use to the party, but he is not capable of being used. And he also claimed his credentials that armed with the skills to negotiate, to persuade, and to reach consensus, he assets his credential for the position of the chairman. He also paid tribute to his the incumbent chairman, who he says was his former predecessor, and having done well, and he wants to continue from where he has stopped. Well, meanwhile,
it's not his predecessor. He's still in
one
office.
One of his predecessors.
All right, of course, both of them were former governors.
As governor, that's what
right.
I'm referring
okay.
to.
Fantastic, yes. All right, Kirian, we have the editorial. I think we'll just take that if we have enough time to take the editorial.
Well, all right, the editorial is actually on insecticides, you know, where Nigerian farmers and, in fact, individuals apply certain insecticides even at home and on farmlands that are very, very detrimental to not just the growth of those plants, or, if it's in the farm, or at home if you're using it for, you know, trying to ward off ants and rodents in your house, that it has after effect. The chemicals have after effect. That's what the editorial is talking about today. Could you expatiate on that?
Well, NAFDAC is advising that while it is very necessary to use insecticide to get rid of pests in the house, particularly we are very concerned about malaria, and we use a lot of it in mosquito. But he says some insecticides contain element that is described as top toxin. And sometimes these top toxins are placed in tablet form. And we used to drop them in the ceiling with the intention of getting rid of scorpions, lizards, wall gecko, and several others. But it has a tendency and ability to percolate through the ceiling and has effect in the home. The other local one which we use to, which is very common, otapiapia. NAFDAC has cited an instance of a family that used otapiapia. And when they went to bed, only the head of the family survived. And so they are cautioning that some of these things we use to get rid of insecticide, pests in the house, do have a long-term effect on us. And some of the long-term effects are Parkinson's diseases, Alzheimer's diseases, and they even go to the extent of saying that even the ordinary insecticide we use, for a long usage, it can predispose you to diabetes and other ailments. So we need to use all of these very carefully, in the sense that the World Health Organization has also identified that about 400 persons die annually from abuses of insecticides.
All right. That's Kira, that's much that we can take. I mean, what you're talking about now is use of abuse of insecticides in homes. But you find it even in marketplaces. You know, they use all kinds of things.
You know,
yes, not just being sold, being used, you know, to ward off flies and all kinds of things with regard to the items.
Food
That's right, that they are selling. Bayotebi, I'd like to thank you very much. And just one last point, Mahathir Mohamad, of course, will come in as Prime Minister, but after he informs the government, he's going to go back into retirement and then hand over power to a much younger person to run the country. Bayotebi, thanks a lot for being around today. See you after you enjoy your weekend.
See you on Monday.
All right. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We are reaching you as always on the network service of Africa's largest television network. We'll take a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll be dealing with our topic for discussion.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There's no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Madam. Brought us as usual.
As usual. You have no problem.
For the three
You are welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah?
You take that one. You take that one. You don't understand? We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have. You don't have.
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice. Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. Mobo to come to chocolate rice of made in Nigeria here. And see how it are made.
Correct.
How they are cook it.
Correct.
Homegrown rice are good for your health. It will boost our economy and will give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Dettol team is visiting schools to teach children how to protect themselves from diseases. Do you know how we get illnesses like diarrhea, cough, and cold?
No!
They are spread through germs which are everywhere. You collect germs that cause diseases. You pick up germs from any surface, like when you don't wash your hands after going to the toilet, while playing. And then you can get sick because of germs. That's why you need to fight germs to stay healthy by washing your hands and taking your bath with Dettol soap to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Wash your hands. What you have to do is bath yourself. Dettol soap every day. Wash your hands.
Hear the call of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, oh get roller. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the daring and invincible Louis the Mosquito. Responsible for 200 malaria cases all on its own. Is there anything that can kill Louis? Morphine! Presenting Morty's Power Guard. Its powerful formula kills malaria mosquitoes fast. So, get Morty's Power Guard.
Well, we thank you for staying with us up to this moment on Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you from the capital of Nigeria, Abuja, and on the largest TV network in Africa. We'll be bringing you our guests to talk on infertility, but that's after Victor Azo's background report on infertility.
A growing challenge globally attributed in some quarters to technology, lifestyle and medical conditions, to name a few. Infertility, according to experts, is the inability of a couple to conceive after having regular and protected sex for about 1 year. Against general belief that has left many with the agony of social stigma, Infertility is a common challenge for both women and men alike. While the risk is higher in women, with the likelihood of occurrence from age 32, other factors like smoking, alcohol, obesity, sexually transmitted infections, mental stress, and other medical conditions increase the prevalence of infertility in women. For men, on the other hand, factors such as low sperm count, low sperm mobility, abnormal sperm, or medical conditions can be responsible for infertility. These factors in both men and women combine to render about 20 to 25% of married couples in Nigeria infertile, according to recent statistics. While available data shows that men contribute between 30 to 50% to the figure, women contribute between 50 to 70% of the numbers. And while the social implications play out in unhappy homes and sometimes lead to breakdown of marriages, there are also spiritual intonations which could leave both parties worn out and derailed from the reality of their situations, not to talk of the stigma of barrenness. How can infertility be managed or treated to yield the best possible results? Experts on Good Morning Nigeria are poised to provide answers to this question and more.
Thank you very much there for that background report. Now we have guests with us here in the studios as well as at our Just Network Center. First, we'd like to welcome Professor John Obioma. He is a professor of medical sociology and gerontology at Nasarawa State University in Kefi. Professor Obioma, pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Also here with us is Dr. S.A. Williams Omonigo. He is a reproductive physician and clinical embryologist at Deep Hospital, also in Abuja.
Thank you.
And also with us is Dr. Phillips Ebe, a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist and medical director at Nyanya General Hospital. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
And from Just Studio, we have Dr. Kenneth Eguda, a consultant gynecologist, IVF specialist, and minimal access surgeon at Arbs Hospital and Diagnostics, Jos. Dr. Eguda is also credited with assisting the oldest woman to be pregnant in Africa through IVF. Gentlemen, we thank you for making our time for this conversation, and you're welcome.
All right. Well, for the benefit of our viewers, because we have indicated the various specializations of our 4 guests this morning, 3 with us here in the Abuja studios, and then Jos, whom we, of course, have had previously on Good Morning Nigeria. I'm just wondering, gentlemen, tell our viewers something. Who is a medical sociologist? What is the difference between an IVF specialist and a gynecologist? Who is a reproductive physician and clinical embryologist? What is the, are these just specialized subspecializations? Let's begin with Professor Obioma, who's professor of medical sociology. What is medical sociology, by the way, very briefly?
Medical sociology is the part of the branch of sociology that deals with the social aspects of medicine. It deals with the way the medicine is organized as a social institution. It deals with the practitioners, the training of practitioners. It deals with the doctor-patient relationship. It deals with adherence to medical regimen as well as public aspects of health.
All right, thank you. Dr. S.A. Monigo, you are a reproductive physician and clinical embryologist. What does that mean? How is it related to gynecology, or how is it different from gynecology and obstetrics?
Thank you for that question. Reproductive physician, clinical embryology is just a branch of, just a little branch of gynecology actually, but this time around is dealing with the beginning of life, where those little things that start life, the sperm, the eggs, how you want to see how competent they are to begin to form what is called an embryo that ultimately becomes a child, ultimately.
I see one wonders, from all these specializations, where do they meet? Where is the meeting point? What is what are the nexus?
Let's bring in Dr. Philip Sekpe, who is an obstetrician and gynecologist.
Thank you very much. When you discuss infertility, you're actually referring to gynecology. All about the human reproduction, you know, is the field of obstetrician gynecology, the reproduction and the pregnancy. Now, in other words, the whole process of the woman growing, the organs involved that helps in carrying the baby, to make sure that they're all working. This is gynecology. Then, of course, pregnancy and taking care of the pregnancy, the delivery of a healthy baby to a healthy mother is obstetrics. So every other field is all inside obstetrician gynecology. You understand?
Okay,
so,
we should go to just now. Dr. Kenneth Abuja is a consultant gynecologist and IVF specialist. What is the difference? Or do they just walk pari passu, you know?
Yeah, good morning once again and to all of you in the studio. An IVF specialist, you know, the whole world's actually interwoven and they work in synchrony to achieve a common goal, which is creating an embryo and enhancing pregnancy and then carrying and delivery. So an IVF specialist just help the couples in generating good oocytes, the eggs, and also getting the sperms from the man and giving it to the embryologist, which you have over there in the studio, to assist in the fertilization and sending back to the specialist also to do an embryo transfer, and then the gynecologist and obstetrician takes over.
Right. Well, I hope that clarifies it for our viewers to an extent, but I'm just a bit curious. Often when you hear of obstetrics and gynecology, the reference is, I mean, your mind just goes to a woman. Does gynecology also relate to a man?
Well, not really. The core is a woman. The woman's reproduction, its organ and the ability to procreate, you understand? It's just that the woman cannot do it alone. So the woman needs a man. And that is where you talk about the field of urology, if there is any problem with the man. You know, you need the man's sperm to fertilize the woman. So the job of obstetrician gynecologist is majorly and mainly the woman. The man just coming as an addendum or less on a social part, you understand? You know, otherwise, when you say obstetrician gynecologist, they deal with the woman, the reproduction of the woman, the reproductive organ, of course, beyond just deliveries, beyond just having babies. I mean, even when there's cancer of the womb, that is gynecology. Even when there's need for family planning, that is gynecology. Even there is infection in that area, that is gynecology. You know, so it's all encompassing. When you talk about woman and reproduction, yeah, referring to the obstetrician gynecologist.
All right, gentlemen, we could see that there is connectivity in all of these specializations, you know. And you see, the topic for this morning is infertility. And let us first of all see how we can define infertility. You know, I would like to start with Professor Obioma.
Okay, actually, infertility in the field of sociology, specifically demography, we define it as infecundability. Fecundability is ability to reproduce. And fertility is actually the actual fact whether a woman will conceive and bear a child already. But the issue we talk about is the issue of ability to conceive, to have a baby. And in sociology, of course, we are really interested in the societal reaction to that, how the people affected, how they cope with it, how they relate with their physicians, and all the other health care practitioners in the field. And also, now it's been established well beyond this thing that health is not just a mere absence of disease. And in this, I think the World Health Organization defined that, and that's probably why somebody in sociology will be talking about health issues, because health now is total well-being. And we're also interested in how the society deals with it.
And not merely the absence of disease or infirmity.
Or injury.
WHO 1948,
but
that was the same year they had the Human Rights Declaration. All right, Dr. Philip Sekpe, tell us something. What is infertility, broadly and also specifically?
Well, infertility, you see, we have to capture it in such a way that everybody will understand and be on the same page. Infertility is the inability of a couple to achieve pregnancy despite regular, adequate, unprotected sexual intercourse for a period of 1 year. You know, so when a couple, young couple or whoever they are, gets married, maybe let's say in January, we are not necessarily interested in finding out whether there's a problem or not, because we feel everything is all right. They should go ahead and copulate and probably get pregnant and have their kids. But after 1 year, you know, when this is not happening, despite the adequate, unprotected sexual intercourse, adequacy we are looking about maybe 3 to 4 times per week. You understand? For a period of 1 year, and there is no conception, there is no pregnancy, then we can say there is infertility in this couple, which can be due to different causes. You understand?
Okay. That is assuming the couples are living together. That's right.
Yes.
Is that a factor?
Yes. No, of course. Like I said, if couples are not living together, then there is.
They could be bilocated. They might come in at the
it's actually a significant cause of infertility. You know, I've had a cause where a patient, the husband and wife are living apart. After investigating both parties, you find out that they're okay. All you need to advise, look, let us work it out. That's where it comes in socially, and see how you can live together. And
let's say return to Dr. Kenneth Aguda there. You are a gynecologist and the IVF specialist, and you have also been credited with making the oldest woman in Africa to get pregnant through IVF. Now, let's get your own definition of infertility, because from your experience, you may give us a different perspective to this definition.
Thank you so much for your observations. All the definition of infertility is given so far actually correct, and maybe I just had a little addition. The word infertility is actually being phased out currently by the World Association of Gynecologists, and the word that is adopted that seems to be friendly is subfertility. Yeah, because from scientific point of view, it's difficult to see somebody who is infertile. If you say infertile, it's a conclusive statement, because even the person that's apparently infertile now can actually conceive by one means or the other. So subfertility is the recently adopted terminology. So if I go by the definition of subfertility, which means infertility from this context, any reason for not being able to achieve pregnancy is deemed to be infertility or subfertility. And that, for me, time duration is actually phasing out too, because in modern times now, you find older couples are getting married, especially looking at the age of the woman, the age of 40. These days you see women getting pregnant. And in this situation now, you don't put a time definition to it, because at that age, a lot of women are already subfertile. So any inability to achieve pregnancy is deemed as infertility. And of course, you see people coming to get married these days go to tests and to find out whether they have reasons that they will not be able to get pregnant. And so they know themselves definitely well before getting married. And so they know the challenges they'll likely meet in marriages. So any reason for not being able to get pregnant, whether a year or less than a year, it's subfertility. Thank you.
Dr. Kenneth Aguda, thank you very much there for the introduction of the term subfertility rather than infertility. So we would like to be semantically correct in pursuing this subject matter. So if that is agreeable to all the guests who are in here, so perhaps we can use the term interchangeably. Dr. S.A. Monigo, what's your take? What is infertility or subfertility?
Thank you for that question again. All the guests have rightly defined subfertility, like our guest from just said. Subfertility is the current term. Just to add that he rightly said it, but I will just break it down a little, that when a woman gets married below the age of 33, 35, the couple can wait for 1 year. Or when a woman of the age of 35 and above is getting married, you don't advise them to wait for 1 year. You want to ask them to try like the definition, they should continue to meet regularly unprotected. But after 6 months, if that woman is not pregnant, the couple should seek for medical attention. A woman above the age of 40, she's getting married. At that age, she should start seeking help within the next 3 months of getting married and doing those things that they need to do. So I think that's added will buttress soft fertility.
All right. I'm wondering, Kira, you have another question. Yeah, just so the nitty-gritty, but let's say prevalence. Yes. Professor Obioma, does Nigeria have a problem of subfertility?
Definitely, definitely. The issue is very, very a serious problem, concerning the fact that we come from a culture where having children is very important. So the couples involved tend to be put in such a situation where they must seek help immediately. In the developed countries where fertility is on the decline, couples can just get married without thinking of having plan of having babies. They can just say they can delay having babies or might choose not to have babies at all. But we come from a culture where if a couple is married for 1 year, if there's no child, then everybody, all the family members decide to have impact. So that's why the fertility problem in Nigeria seems to be more than others, because of the sensitivity of the problem. Because
of the culture and tradition of the people.
Exactly.
That if a couple they should live for 1 year without giving birth to a child, then it's a problem. Right. Now, I'd like us to now go to the causes of this infertility. We've talked about the infertility, the definition.
I'm wondering, Kirian, before we get into the causative factors, from a clinical point of view, Dr. Ekman, indeed the other doctors, do you find couples or patients presenting with cases of subfertility, maybe over a period of time, assuming you have the data? Does Nigeria, from a clinical point of view, have a subfertility challenge?
Well, thank you very much. But before we just get there, I'm not totally in agreement in interchanging the word infertility with subfertility. It's just that because there are usually the need, eventually a woman may get pregnant with some level of assistance. That is where the word subfertility came in. And we're still trying to accept it. It's not like it's totally adopted and such a current thing now to say, oh, infertility is now subfertility. Yes, because where we can get a woman who is 50 years old, eventually through some level of assistance, you can make her to get pregnant. So we're trying to say, okay, let's use the word subfertility. But you see, we have to have nomenclatures and definitions so that we all be on the same page. If not, otherwise, couples may even be under undue pressure. There are people who still get married at the age of 37, 38, 40, and without any form of assistance, they just get pregnant. You understand? So these things are still a little bit debatable. However, I would prefer to use the word infertility for now. There we make definition of subfertility because you don't want to condemn somebody to say, oh, she's infertile. That means you cannot help her at all. There's no hope, But infertility do exist, as a subject, as a topic, and subfertility is mentioned under infertility, However, I will say there are a lot of couples that come up with infertility. In short, any gynecological clinic, one of the commonest consultation is infertility. It's quite very common. The incidence, rather, is about 10%.
All right, we'll return to you, Dr. Eguda, because we would like you to comment on what the last speaker just said with respect to substituting infertility with subfertility, right? But so that we can now begin to be on the same page, as you rightly pointed out, on this conversation, because Nigerians need to really know the difference and be able to now say, okay, fine, this is what we want to believe in. So, Dr. Eguda, please come in again here.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Ekpe, for the observation. Yeah, the reason for adopting the word subfertility is just for social reasons and not necessarily clinical reasons, because labeling a woman as infertile has a connotation of a definite sentencing. You know, so you say somebody's infertile means it's just like a write-off. It's just infertile. She can't get pregnant no matter the assistance. So he's right in the terminologies he used, but usually these words in obstetrics and gynecology constantly undergo reviews, and the words that are socially acceptable are now being adopted. And that is why the case for subfertility is being pushed forward as against infertility. But he's right. So I think for the purpose of this talk, we could stick with the word infertility. But if you look at modern texts in obstetrics and gynecology, subfertility is currently being adopted. And I think Nigeria, to a large extent, tends to tie up with the United Kingdom and America in adoption of terminologies, and that is where currently we're going to. Yeah, ONG is fraughted with a lot of debates, you know, and a lot of argument, and this is just one of them. And well, I think it's fine for the purpose of this discussion. Infertility could be used.
Dr. Eguda, just speak on the prevalence rate from the clinical perspective. Does Nigeria have a challenge?
Yes, Nigeria has a lot of challenges, just as Dr. Ekpe rightly mentioned. Most of the cases you consult in a gynecological clinic in Nigeria tend to be infertility or subfertility, as the case may be. And the data we're looking around in this part of the country, it's close to about 25 to 30% cases of the visitation to the gynecologist tend to be infertility. And for those of us who are IVF specialists, for instance, over 90% of cases that I see primarily are infertility, but that doesn't mean that's a privilege, but because people just gravitate towards you if that is your area of subspecialty. Yeah, but if you look at it generally, we're looking at 30–35% of the general gynecological populations having the burden of infertility in Nigeria.
Thank you, Dr. Kenneth Eguda. And we have a new guest joining us from our Lagos Network Center. She is Dr. Zubeida Aliyu, consultant obstetrician and gynecologist. She is representing the Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists of Nigeria. Madam, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here.
It's actually a balance now. We've been able to strike a balance, you know, having a lady with us who actually plays a key role in the entire process of reproduction. And you're also a medical practitioner. You've listened to guests here in the Abuja studio and, of course, in Just Network Center. We'd like you to come in from any of the issues that have been tabled. You know, you haven't listened for a while now, from definition to the issue of subfertility and the infertility and what have you.
Okay. Thank you. So far, the discussions have been interesting and quite both correct. Infertility, subfertility, interchangeably, which is inability of a couple to achieve conception after 1 year of regular adequate sexual intercourse, which is defined at least 3 to 4 times in a week. The reasons for the newer definitions is because, like the other consultant said, stating infertile woman has a lot of psychological connotation to it. So that's why most of the times the women are the couple, rather I would say couples with infertility rather than infertile couple. And then here in Nigeria or African setting, it's usually the women that bear the brunt of the problems of infertility in the family. However, the causes, as we all know, could be from either the female factor or the male factor, or from both of them. But however, most of the times after 1 year in marriage, the families, the in-laws start putting pressure on the woman that she's not been able to get pregnant. And the prevalence, yes, it's common in Nigeria because 20 to 25% of Nigerian couples are affected with infertility. That means about 1 in 5 of every Nigerian couples have some challenges getting pregnant. And it also accounts for a lot of gynecological outpatient consultations. In some studies, up to about 50% of consultations at the gynecological clinic are infertility related. So this is quite a common problem in Nigeria as well.
All right, thank you very much there. That's Dr. Zubeida Ali. We'll come back to you. Let's return to our studios. Dr. S.A. Monigo, now tell us something with regard to prevalence rate and straight away get into the causative factors from your clinical experience.
Thank you for that question. Prevalence rate, like all the discussants have said, is quite true. In Nigeria, generally, globally, 10 to 15% of infertility is, that's what you see generally. And in Nigeria, it's not also far from being correct. And the consultations in the clinics by the gynecologists is also more these days of infertility-related issues. And the reason that we also think it's making it rise is actually awareness also. Our couples are more aware now. Those days, like Prof actually said, our culture, people were hidden under the culture. But these days, people, no, somebody tells you, no, don't bother yourself. You need to go to the hospital. Go see the doctor. There are management protocols. There are ways to care for these kind of challenges. And that takes us to the causes of infertility. And today, we are now, like you rightly said during the introduction, 50% of the causes of infertility is attributed to the male factor. About 40% to the female factor, then the remaining 10% just spreads around between the man and the woman. And to some extent, it could be unknown, but depending on the kind of facility that is available for the diagnosis or for the checks amongst these couples. Some other people might beg to differ that the cause in males is it up to 50%? We think these days it's up to 50% because also men are coming to the hospitals more now to actually be checked.
See, Dr. Ebe, in the course of this conversation, we would like you to expatiate more on this issue of 50% on the part of men, because there may be instances to be cited. You know, when a man is married, he didn't have issue for several years, he marries another woman and he gets issues and stuff like that. We may get to that, but I think it's important now for us to start talking about the causes of infertility.
That's what it's already talking about.
And let's return to Lagos, okay. Dr. Zubeida Aliyu, who is also a gynecologist and a mother. Now, the issue, you raised an issue that women are often blamed for infertility in many homes and what have you. Now, what are the causes, from your clinical experience, as Kinsley would put it, what are the causes of infertility and what are the factors, the thematic factors that actually lead to that?
Like my other colleagues have said, the causes of infertility could be from the woman, which could account for about 40%, and also the man problems affecting the man accounts for up to about 40%, and then about 10 to 15% from both the man, either the man or the woman, and then in some about 5 to 10% which are classified as unexplained infertility. However, this is usually a diagnosis of exclusion, meaning all other, the couples have been investigated, both the man and the woman, and then no cause has been found for it, and also depending on the facilities available there for the investigation before this diagnosis can be made. So the men contribute as much as the women to causes of infertility, unlike the previously where it's the woman that it's always blamed for problems of infertility. And the further causes in the woman could be as a result of, for example, tubal factors, which could affect the tubes from previous poorly treated infections, or previous surgeries, and we could have the uterine factors or factors related to anovulation. These are some of the causes in women, where for the men we could have low sperm count or poor sperm quality. And presently also we have the rates of infertility on the increase due to also age-related infertility, because like the other speakers have said, after the age of 35, the natural fertility rates starts declining as well, due to the poor both quality and then the quantity of eggs also in the woman. But however, people are now being aware that the problem of infertility is not just limited or limited to the woman alone. The men also contribute as much to these problems. But it's good now with their awareness. Couples are now coming more to seek for help for clinical evaluation and also management.
Thank you very much, Dr. Leo. Let's go over to Jos. Dr. Eguda, let's have your take on this with regard to causative factors, and if you like, also the distribution between men and women.
Yeah, thank you so much. We have about 40% of causes of subfertility attributable to the man, 40% attributable to the woman, and the 20% shared factor between the couples. Yeah, and of course we have another subsector which is not part of my classification, that is referred to as infertility of undetermined factor. Yeah, the factor has not yet been known, but of course everything has a cause. So for the male part, she had mentioned quite a lot. Yeah, but we see today there's increasing rise in male factor infertility. Yeah, this is as a result of a lot of stress that men or the world is open to today. And you know, this stress makes the body produce a lot of stress factors. We call them oxygen species, radicals, you know, and that they help in destroying the sperms that men have, so that even when you have this quantity in the right proportion, yeah, the functionality of the sperms may actually be reduced because of a stress that people are going through currently. This stress also affects women in getting pregnant. You know, we have cases like growth in the scrotum of men. This could actually increase the temperature of the scrotum, which could affect the process of sperm development. We call it spermatogenesis. So men are actually carrying a whole burden of this subfertility. And for the female factor, she had mentioned a lot. Yeah, there's an aspect that the world is not considering so much. Just before we started this program, there was a case of chemicals that was being mentioned in the documentary that was made before this program. You know, these days we have what we call the endocrine disruptor factors. You see a lot of men sleep in houses where you just fleet with insecticide to kill mosquitoes, and before it spreads out, you have them sleeping in them. You have a lot of people working with insecticide, some working in chemical plants, some working in a whole lot of chemical environments, what kind of chemical it may be. All these things have a grave impact on sperm development. They produce what we call the chemical endocrine disruptor factors, and so they damage sperms and they damage all endocrine systems in the human body, both for the male and for the female, and they can increase infertility, as we're seeing. And that's for the men. For the women, she had mentioned a lot, the tubal factors, blocked tubes or dysfunctional tubes or absence of tubes. And the aging, which is more rampant these days in my own perspective, because from my own gynecological clinic, I see a lot of older people as compared to the younger age group. And that's because of the social revolution and cultural revolution that we're having currently in our own dispensation. People marry at older age, and so come down with a lot of subfertility and requiring advanced form of fertility treatment to achieve pregnancy. Yeah, the cause of infertility are actually very inexhaustible. And we can't talk all about them in this sitting, but to allow other people to talk, I'd like to hold it up at this point.
Thank you very much indeed. And we return to our Abuja studios here and straight to Dr. Phillips Ebe on this same issue of the factors responsible for subfertility or infertility, as the case may be.
Well, from our discussion, you can see that it's obvious. You see, we don't have a definitive figure to say, okay, oh, we must place it that way, you know, because of different prevalence, because of different areas, you know. But if you look at it, the figures are almost the same. Me, for instance, I would say, oh, male alone contributes 30%, female alone contributes 30%. Both parties contribute 30%. Then you now have another 10% of unexplained infertility. And of course, if you know worldwide, the science is dynamic. You know, what we have not discovered is far more than what we have discovered. So there's going to be a lot of evolution even as time goes on. You know, however, considering the factors again. The male is equally implicated as the female. It's just that those days, you know, because of cultural reason and background, the female present themselves and were able to do more research on the female and have more solution when it comes to female problem compared to the male. But with the advance of information technology and people getting more aware, the male are now beginning to come up. Of course, if you even look at them, we seem to help the female more than the male, you know, but the factors are in the same persons. It's just that it's a lot easier to help the male, to help the female than the male. Once it comes to the male, there's just virtually little you can do. The next thing, almost jump into advanced fertility treatment like IVF.
Before you conclude, could hormone imbalance, you know, be a factor to
Yes, it's in both parties. Yes, for instance, you see the same process that is involved in making the egg, permit me to use that word, the same process is also involved in making the sperm. And these are the hormones. You are talking about testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, all of them, you know, that the same hormonal imbalances, you understand? Even sometimes the same drug you give to the male, to the female, is the same drug you give to the male, you know. But it's just that what we're saying is that most times it's a lot easier to treat the male. It's more difficult, or the female, permit me, and more difficult to treat the male. So, but you are getting there because now males are presenting themselves. We're beginning to see specimen. We're beginning to see reason why, you know, he just mentioned the issues of stress, the issues of certain factors, free radicals, and all the rest of them affecting sperm production, you know. So these are ongoing research trying to improve male infertility, but the factors that both parties are involved. They mentioned that in the female, you know, you can divide it into hormonal, I mean, that has to do with ovulation. You can divide it into mechanical, that has to do with the tubes and, you know, and on, you know. Then, of course, there is no way a female can get pregnant on her own without the need for sperm. And so it's both parties. Both
All
ways.
right.
Yes.
Dr. Ekwe, thank you very much. Let's bring in Professor John Obioma, of course, who's a professor of medical sociology. Well, we've listened to the medical doctors, and they have said, listen, you have a ratio, 40-40, 30 or whatever, but that there's a certain percentage that, I mean, they all agree, maybe some 10% or 5% unexplained factors. Now, what are these from a sociological perspective? What are these unexplained factors? Could it be jazz, you know, could it be witchcraft or the so-called, you know, spiritual attack, since we don't have an explanation for it so far?
Okay, thank you. I'm interested in what particular Dr. Iguda said about the impact of stress on the whole infertility issue.
I'm sorry, I was just talking about the superstition. That's the aspect before you get into stress, which is the medical. Because if that percentage is unexplained, stress is already explained. But that unexplained, you know, how does it play in the imagination?
Well, the imagination of Nigerians towards infertility or towards a lot of things tend to, first of all, blame the females and blame other parties for some of the things that are not explained. You are rightly correct by saying that most of the unexplained stuff, even the things that most people all over the world know, Nigerians all try to explain it away by blaming witchcraft, by blaming other cultural, religious factors. But the point is, some of the things that we're explaining about this whole prevalence has to do, that's what sociologists call cultural lag theory, that one sociologist from the US, F. Urban, said, even later, 1940s, that material culture is always ahead of the non-material culture. Take, for instance, all the things that have been discovered about fertility. Like this factor now of giving the conservative destined causes from the male position. But these things would take a while before it's seeping. The technology is out there about all these discoveries, but the cultural aspect lags behind. It takes a while before the society now will accept. For instance, male now being aware now, going accepting that they actually are even playing a role, contributing, being contributing factor to infertility. But it will take a time, and also with more awareness and more treatment modalities, then the society will begin to accept that, hey, it's not...
I'm not cutting it short, sorry, because I want you to explain this to us from your experience and from this social perspective. People come to you. You have, speaking with some couples who have this issue, and when Kingsley raised the issue of superstition, right, does it play out? Right, and because this has led to even people, getting married to one or two more couples, wives, as the case may be. And in fact, maybe at the second time he may have a child, but at the first instance he never did. Now, how do you explain this out to those who consult you?
The culture, our culture and religious belief play significant roles in terms of the social aspects of infertility that we're talking about. Well, with biology and science is out there, nobody will dispute that. But when it comes to cultural issues, of course, people have their own perspectives, and our belief system is very strong. It's very difficult to convict somebody that there's no other, that supernatural forces are not playing a role in terms of what is happening to them. To the point that even in terms of the preference for sons in Nigeria, we had people talk about the fact that somebody has this magical power of changing the fetus from a female fetus to a male, usually from a male fetus to a female fetus. So basically, infertility, when it does not happen at first, before they even go, they will blame it on that grandmother, grand auntie, or those people in the village that don't want them to succeed and all that. So it's real, it's real. And the way they do it, they make it even try to convince you, the expert that knows that this is not the case. That is really the case, that these supernatural forces play a role in the infertility problem.
All right, Professor Obioma, thank you very much. Of course, we needed to raise that because we have that unexplained 5 to 10%, and you have all kinds of jazz, playing around in all of those things. They will have to sort it out. Dr. Ekpa, you want to
I want to make a correction.
Yes.
You see, when we said that 5 to 10% is unexplained, that's because of the limitation of science. To say, yes, with all we have, we still have not been able to discover certain reasons why certain persons are not getting pregnant, not achieving pregnancy. In other words, over time, some long time ago, there are still some factors that we didn't know as of that time that we know now. So the reason for that unexplained is that you've checked everything that within the limit of science for now. Yes, we're talking for now. So we will not use spirituality.
No,
we will not use.
You are not the one using it.
Yes.
It's from a sociological
No, but I must clarify that. So that it won't be like we left that. We didn't leave that for religion. We didn't leave that for jazz. We didn't leave that. We left that for further discoveries.
Yeah,
you understand?
But I hope you also know, gentlemen and Madam in Lagos, that listen, where science stops, superstition takes over.
Takes over, exactly.
Yeah, Dr. Amadu, you want to add to this?
Yes, just to add to what Doctor just said now also, is that the limitation of the test. Even though a couple goes to a certain, they say a certain consultation, and they say everything looks okay. That is also based on the limitation of what that facility can offer at that time. If the couple goes to another place with a better facility for a barrage of tests, they most often than not, they pick things. They pick things, and once you start managing the couple accordingly, you see that their stories change. They get pregnant.
Well, these limitations actually are pervasive because even in other aspects of medication, orthodox medicine sometimes stops somewhere. Right, and that's when people take to local.
That's right. But of course, we do know we don't have the jazz men here with us, you know, to discuss that elusive 5%. But yes. I mean, the fact that all the medical experts have been talking, of course, that persons are now presenting themselves will indicate that they are already surmounting that superstitious barrier that was always there. To say that, look, if 90 to 95% can be explained by science, so of course the thing will be to pursue the scientific inquiry. We'll come to, again, to interrogate further other causative factors, lifestyle, the kind of diet you eat, and so on and so forth, and the kind of injuries that a person may sustain that will inhibit or that could lead to subfertility. I'm more, please don't mind me, I'm more in love with Dr. Eguda's suggestion that we use subfertility. Ask me why, Kiri and gentlemen. It's in the past, in terms of social correctness, we used to talk about sicklers. Now it is said these are persons who have sickle cell disorder rather than the sickler. In the past, you say that the person is deaf and dumb. Now it's deaf mute. Are you with me? So subfertility means suboptimal performance, and therefore, but of course, there will have to be agreement going forward in terms of the social terminology. There are reactions that have come in from our viewers already, and we're going to take their tweets right away. Dele Jack Solomon, one of our regular tweeters, has said this. Problems associated with infertility are globally on the rise, while Nigeria still has one of the lowest utilization rates. That's for in vitro fertilization technologies among nations to correct this abnormality. However, we need governments at all levels to fund our health sectors and research. Ironically, African nations like Nigeria should take the issue of family planning serious because our population is exponentially on the rise.
Yeah, even with the infertility we're talking about, the population is growing astronomically. Yes. Now, from Mike Wankwo, he said it's very unfortunate that infertility has caused the dissolution of many marriages. The causes of infertility are many, which include alcohol, drugs, abortion, or late marriages, though some wrongly ascribe it to juju. Whatever the case, mutual understanding between couples is very important.
Law Alpha C has this. Infertility has long been conquered by medical reproductive options, which couples are expected to avail themselves of. Understanding, tolerance, and love are important virtues needed to conquer, they say infertility, we say subfertility, provided the couple is informed enough.
Yes, Festus Akimboye says, if there is genuine rise in infertility in Nigeria, why has it not halted the growth in our population? In any case, if indeed infertility is truly on the rise in Nigeria, it will be because many women are delaying starting a family or working more until they are established in their careers. Also, sperm count in men is falling due to the environment. Well-balanced diet and exercise will improve fertility.
All right, let's take Victor Ohioswama. He says infertility or subfertility in Nigeria is very common. IVF is a way out, but it is not easily accessible because of high cost. Why is it so expensive, and what can be done to make it less expensive?
Now, the WHO, from Dele Jack Solomon, the WHO estimates that about 60% of infertility cases in Nigeria are attributable to genital tract infections and advanced maternal age. Our government, civil society, religious centers, social centers, and schools should continue to help reach morality to the conscience of our teeming youth population. The way forward in ameliorating the increasing burden of infertility depends on proper management of the infertile couples through clinical counseling and taking advantage of current technological trends for infertility control, such as artificial insemination and in vitro fertilization.
Shakiro has this tweet: can any doctor on earth say he can treat all infertility cases? Some are beyond human intervention. Anyone with such a case needs God.
All right, now, lastly, from Nejo Abdu, please ask guests for the audience's education, what qualifies a person as an IVF specialist? Is it by self-acclamation? We'll put that question to a man in just very much later on the show. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. Every day, 16,000 children under the ages of 5 and thousands of adults die from infectious diseases. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily. In unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilet, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 Cap Full for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid, to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol Sure. Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on Nigerian Television Authority. Let's return to our Lagos Network studios, where we still have Dr. Zubaida Aliyu. Dr. Aliyu, of course, is a consultant gynecologist. In terms of causative factors, tell us something with regard to lifestyle for both sexes and dietary habits and so on and so forth. Some persons could have, as it were, tanked themselves with all kinds of toxins in their younger years, and then later in life they say, look, okay, I want to abstain from this. So at what age, at what point in your life, do you begin to avoid certain kinds of things or take certain kinds of things in order not to hamper the individual's fertility?
Okay, thank you. Well, lifestyle changes also contribute a lot to infertility. For example, some instances here in Lagos whereby you find the couples, maybe one is staying on the island, the other on the mainland, and they only get to see probably on weekends because of the traffic situations and all in Lagos. So in the truth, there might not be infertility per se, but because they are not mating regularly and adequately, so this might be the cause. And also other problems such as obesity, which could predispose to hypertension, diabetes, all these also affect fertility potential of individuals. Also, people that smoke, both the males and the females, also tend to affect fertility negatively. Alcohol consumption, and always balance the diet is the key, because you need all the nutrients in appropriate proportions so as to help improve fertility in both either the man or the woman. And so obesity mainly, which is also on the increase presently, both in men and women. So we have to make the public aware of this and try to keep one's body mass index within normal range, because this would help with a lot of the causes, both in male and female. For example, the ovulatory factor and ovulation, and the other factors as well. So these are some of the lifestyle causes that could affect fertility in both men and women. So we need to eat right, healthy, balanced diet, maintain maintain normal weight and exercising regularly, and also counsel the couples that they need to be together for and try before they can be said to have fertility challenges, because if they're not meeting regularly, and then so one cannot categorically make that diagnosis. So lifestyle modifications also play a key role in fertility in both men and women. Okay.
Dr. Aliyu. Now, let's return to Jos once more. Dr. Guda, you've listened to Dr. Aliyu and what she has posited with respect to these causative factors, right? And there is one issue I want to raise here, which we may like to speak to. There could be couples who live together for 1, 2, 3 years, as the case may be, without even consulting any medical personnel. They'll have delayed birth, right? And after 3 years, one will come up. In some cases, twins, as the case may be. So what is responsible for that?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question and observation. You know, it all depends on what the cause of that subfertility is. There's a particular cause of subfertility that we call polycystic ovaries, for instance, or anovulation. In this situation, you have the woman not ovulating regularly. And okay, maybe when she ovulates, at sometimes the egg quality may not be good quality to permit for pregnancy to occur. But sometimes she may just ovulate, either single or multiple ovulations, and then you now have pregnancy happen. So they've not consulted anyone, they have not gone to any hospitals, and then you have pregnancy happening. Then again, you see, when a woman is approaching advanced age, where ovulation becomes infrequent, you know, she has a buildup of hormones we call the follicle-stimulating hormone that can surge at later stage in her lifetime. And depending on the volume or the force of the surge, the ovaries may be hit, and more than one egg, and in this case, maybe good eggs, will be produced. And maybe she's lucky to meet with her partner at that point in time, and then pregnancy occurs, and instead of getting a single teen, you now see twins happening. Those are some of the dynamics that could happen. And then you have a man that is battling with a borderline sperm. Maybe for some reasons that he doesn't know, he has modified his lifestyle unknown to him, or at that particular stage, the sperms have improved in quality or count, and pregnancy just occurs. You know, so those are some of the things that may just explain why some of these things are happening. And you know, there are some food substances, for instance, like for those who stay in the Ilesha area of Nigeria, where you have yams that have a chemical substance we call that acts like clomid that boosts ovulation and cause super ovulation. Maybe these guys or this couple goes consuming those kind of food substance or others are similar to them at this point in time, and pregnancy that wasn't forthcoming just happened. So a whole lot could just be imagined that could have happened. And if you look closely and you investigate their lifestyle, you'll find reasons or cause for that pregnancy to happen spontaneously. And let me just add to what Dr. Ali from Lagos just said. Lifestyle. Lifestyle is complex these days, and we have a lot of gadgets, a lot of electronics that we use currently. An average man may have 2 to 3 handsets or phones, and you know, researchers have shown over and over again that concentration of the waves of this phone could damage the sperm cells or the sperm forming organ, could damage the brain itself, could damage the breast of women. Yeah, but because they are being powered by highly technological companies, nobody cares to publish the results of these findings. And you see, a study was done in America like 5 years ago, and men were cohorted into 2 groups, those that use phone frequently and the phones in their pocket close to their testes, close to their scrotum, and the analysis of their sperms were done. You know, it was discovered that those who have these phones close by have reduced count of their sperm as against those who don't have them close by. So it is advised that, yeah, use your phones, but be careful the way you use the phones. Let them be on when they have to be on, and let them be off and away from you when they have to be away from you. And you should be mindful how you give it to little kids, because these days children play with a lot of phones, and when they hold them, you know, they're just close to them at the private parts, maybe connected to a network and waves. So you could end up bringing a generation of young boys and girls with fertility dysfunction, especially for the males, with low sperm count. So that's just an addition to lifestyle modification as well as dieting that could help enhance or damage fertility. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Iguda, thank you very much for that perspective, particularly with phones. I think the information went around sometime in the past. Well, I don't know how well people are reacting to it, particularly for men. You are told not to put the phone in your pocket because it's pretty close to the powerhouse.
Central area.
Yeah, but all right. Let's very quickly, we have tweets that have also come in. Kira, before we take those tweets, I want Dr. Ekpe to also speak to lifestyle and diets. Again, from the African perspective or the Nigerian perspective, there was always a myth. Dr. Iguda has talked about yam and the prevalence of twins, not just in Elisha. You also have it in Edo. You have, before every other street, you have Eyiviva, that is mother of twins. You know, they're all over the place. But tell us something. The palm wine, it was always some myth that if somebody took the drugs, and I'm sure Chinua Achebe wrote a lot about that, if you took the drugs, then it was likely to be a potential power booster.
Well, you know, palm wine is an alcohol. Alcohol can increase your libido, but it reduces your stamina, just like any drug that helps you to get things going, you know, maybe cause some inhibition or distraction, and then, you know, your libido increases. But now the ability to go 1, 2, 3 times or 4 times may become a problem. So if you're talking about libido, yes, fine. That can be associated with palm wine, just like any other alcohol, for that particular sex. But now when you want to have multiple or have stamina to continue for a longer time, it begins to depreciate it, because just like every other person too, you know, when you take alcohol, yes, you can do things, but eventually you get weak and all the rest of them.
Does it affect the quality of the sperm?
No, it's not. Alcohol, even in moderate quantity, over a long time, reduces the quality of sperm. That is what the research findings are. There is no, even some people say, oh, take stout, you know. No, it does not increase the quality, rather it reduces the quality of sperm.
It increases the libido.
It increases libido temporarily, it's a temporary effect. But the long-term effect is that the sperm count, the sperm quality drops.
I'm wondering, Kira, before we take the tweets, Professor Obioma, Dr. Aliu from Lagos, in taking off some of the causative factors, talked about obesity. That would be both male or female. How do we reconcile this from a sociological perspective? If you recall, in some cultures, there was a so-called fattening room where a young bride, you know, was, sequestrated and, of course, fed until she became, as we say, this with due respect to persons like that, she became an honorable. And that didn't inhibit, you know, her fertility. How do we explain that?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to say that I'm very impressed with my fellow panelists, particularly physicians, for bringing or for recognizing the impact of social factors in what we're talking about. Yes, when we talk about obesity, really obesity is not a serious problem in Nigeria, only for a few, the well-to-do. So in those days, of course, as the physician can attest, people, particularly females who are very skinny, sometimes have problems with their reproductive aspects in terms of that. So those are mothers or forefathers knew that the impact of at least adding some flesh on those women, that will help to increase the fertility of those women. As you know, in the past, famine and not having food used to be a problem in this part of the world. But now, of course, what we have is, we have a two, you want to say in Nigeria, we have the very affluent, rich, that are living the lifestyle of the developed countries having this obesity problem. But majority of the masses do have, I think, even you can even say that they have malnutrition and they have a problem of not getting the right weight they're supposed to have. But okay.
Go ahead.
In addition to this, as a sociologist, I want to talk about impact of the public health and the role that the government should play. Some of the things we're talking about here, these stress-related issues, some of them are caused by the problems living in Nigeria. Some are beyond the individual. Some of these things like what is affecting fertility, like people entering into sexual unions late and all that, it's because of the social conditions. When people who don't have job, graduated late, don't have job, marry late and start having babies late.
All right, Professor Obioma, we'll stop you there because of a want of time. But from what was raised a short while ago at the fattening room and all of that, I think our forefathers also had solutions to some of these problems. So they preferred solutions that worked for them at their own time, and we were trying to discard those applications that they actually used during their own time. That is why we have unexplained percentage of this infertility issue that we're discussing now. For now, Nigerians are still reacting to this, Kingsley, and I have Tega Williams. Hope the doctors are not forgetting their village people. I mean, the African scientist method.
That's what we were just talking about. This is from Omar Ban. It says, I would like to know whether the timing of ovulation over the menstrual cycle determines the sex of an unborn child. Well, this is not exactly strictly what we are discussing.
Yes. Now, Joe says, I am 37 years old and my girlfriend will be 30 by December. Sincerely, due to some pressure around us, I feel we can only get married when she will be 32. What are your chances? What are our chances of getting fertile?
And Ralph Mike, excuse me, Ralph Mike Alika has this tweet. I'm enjoying this conversation. I must say that worthy people are more to be affected by infertility or subfertility because of the chemical environments they always put themselves in. This ranges from airtight new automobile, office, home, etc., body spray, air freshener, constant repainting, etc.
All right, then Asamoto David says, when a young couple loses 2 pregnancies within the space of a year, what could be the cause? That person wants to put it to a professor.
Mobola Hon Babs. Now, one of the hidden reasons is that women hardly want to go for fibroid tests. And those who dare go hardly want to go back for surgery. I've seen many cases that eventually it's not that the husband had a subfertility issue, but the wife had fibroid. She didn't want to treat for a long time. All right, so these are the, and another one says another vital reason may be the rate at which people consume food that are not natural. Many couples relish food and drinks with so much preservatives, and all of these have a telling effect on their life. All right, Dr. S.L. Monigo, would like you to give us your closing thoughts. Some points that have been raised there. Of course, you hear it in conversations sometimes. Oh, the lady, or let's say the woman, presented with fibroids, and so, you know, there was an obstruction, and therefore the woman couldn't conceive. You want to speak to this point?
Thank you. I can just say something very important, that fibroids generally are not a cause of infertility or subfertility, as the case may be. However, the obstetrician and gynecologist will bear that depending on the location, depending on the size, depending on what they cause by their sheer presence, then people will want to say something. Oh, the gynecologist will want to say, oh, don't worry. Oh, let's manage this. Let's do surgery. Let's manage it medically. However, that's that with fibroids. Closing thought regarding lifestyle is there is a general, today there's a study going on. It's called the EARTH study, where it is trying to help couple to determine what are those foods, what are those kind of things that people should avoid. And for now, the study is still going on. It's been going on since 2004. I think it will stop in 2020. But preliminary results is telling us that this chemical called phthalate is present in virtually most of these additives, chemicals, perfumes, creams, all these things, is a causative factor in subfertility.
All right. I'm wondering, Dr. Moniwo, thanks. Kirian, just before we sign out our guest, Dr. Kenneth Eguda, there was a tweet that was probably sociological. It says that, look, persons who are well-to-do, who are therefore exposed to all kinds of chemicals and so on and so forth, air conditioners, air fresheners, may be the ones who are more challenged by subfertility. And then, on the other hand, persons who are lower down the socioeconomic ladder may, of course, have no challenges. Is there any relationship? Of course, you see them, they generally tend to have more firepower and then more children.
Yeah. Thank you for the observation again, too. Socioeconomic status does not necessarily have a very strong bearing on fertility or subfertility. It depends on the lifestyle of the person. You can be very wealthy, good socioeconomic status, and live healthy life, and avoiding all the chemicals, as it is said, and you still have your good fertility. And you could be poor, I mean, in the low socioeconomic status, exposed to all the chemicals in the farm, insecticide, pesticides, sleep under mosquito insecticide and all that, and still suffer infertility. So the cause and the relationship and effect is neither here nor there. It could affect anybody at any particular time. Just that obesity is tend to be more with the affluent, and so obesity has its own lot of problems. Yes, it could cause a subfertility. Like for the woman, for instance, it causes abnormality in the eggs. There will be no time to discuss it in this forum. For the man, it causes abnormality with the sperm. And affluence is something that can actually predispose you to getting obese. And so, yeah, some form of relationship exists between all this. Thank you.
I would like to thank you, gentlemen and ladies. It's been an exciting conversation this morning on a very, very crucial topic that, in fact, affects many families across the nation. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Zubeida Aliyu, consultant obstetrician and gynecologist. We thank you, madam, for being part of our show this morning. Insight and Guda, a gynecologist, IVF specialist, and minimal access surgeon. Thank you for your insights on the program this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, and back here in the studio, I would like to thank Professor John Obioma, who brought the social perspective to this conversation. Thank you, Professor Obioma, for your insight.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and Dr. Philip Ebe, a consultant obstetrician and a gynecologist, a medical director at Nyanya General Hospital. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And finally, we'd like to appreciate Dr. S. Williams Omoniho. He is a reproductive physician and clinical embryologist. In fact, you know, we had people from different specialized areas of medicine.
Absolutely. We'll kick off the conversation by letting them explain, you know, each of the roles. Yes. Gentlemen and lady, we really appreciate all of you for being with us. Dr. Modiwo, lastly, thanks a lot for being around. All right, so that does it now for our conversation on managing subfertility in Nigeria. I would like to be socially correct. Let's go very quickly now to our sports segment.
Ahead of the farewell